So last week we got the premiere of Bliss starring Owen Wilson and Selma Hayek on Amazon Prime, and it was a pretty weird watch.
You see all these people outside? They're not real. This is a simulation.
You ready?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brandon and this is Film Flare, where we discuss anything and everything that makes film and television great. So be sure to subscribe and let's talk about a confusing movie. Now the movie follows Greg, who after recently getting divorced and then fired from his job, meets this mysterious woman Isabel. And this stranger manages to convince him that this polluted, broken world around them is all a computer simulation. And she might actually be right, if he chooses to believe her. Now this story opens up at Greg's job. It's a chaotic workspace of endlessly ringing telephones, but we find Greg actually hiding away in his office, sketching as a sort of way to center himself in all the madness. And at this point, it's actually no wonder that he gets fired. He's literally doing anything but his actual job. But he immediately meets Isabel, who tells him that the world that he's living in isn't actually real.
You see all these people outside? They're not real.
The bartender?
Not real. Nothing of this is real.
And when nothing's real, nothing really matters. So they embark on this sort of carefree journey, just having fun. But when Greg starts having difficulty separating himself from this twisted fantasy, he starts spinning out of control. And as a viewer, I was definitely questioning which world was real and which one was fake. Although there are little clues here and there that tell you which one is actually the simulation. The special effects of this movie were subtle rather than over the top and overused. There was just enough to make the point, but it wasn't in your face so much as to take away from the actual storytelling. And that's something I really liked, considering how a simulation can easily be blown out of proportion. This one prefers to stick to reality with minor variations. But I did absolutely love the color palettes used to differentiate this simulated world from the real one. The dark and grungy gray of the simulation versus the bright and vibrant colors of the real world. It drives home the point that this simulation is supposed to be depressing, making you actually value what you have in the real world. But even the real world, which is sort of this futuristic utopia, isn't perfect. It's got its cracks and flaws that show through here and there. And really, the same can be said about the film itself. I really do like the overall concept and ideas this one was going for, but it's in the details and execution that I think holds this film back. Mainly the characters themselves. Owen Wilson was his typical stumbling self, and that would have been fine, except in this one, he feels like he knows too little. He has to take everyone else at their word because he literally doesn't know anything.
You're the one telling me he's real and she's not real, and then I have to take your word for it.
And when you have a character who isn't able to think for themselves, it's kind of hard for the audience to root for them and to know how we should really feel about them. If they don't even know, how can we? And then there's Selma Hayek as Isabel, who seemingly knows everything and is in the driver's seat the whole time. She tells simulation Greg what's real, what isn't. She tells real world Greg who they are and what their past is. But it's hard to actually believe her fully if we don't know what's actually true. She could be telling the truth, or she could be making it all up to manipulate him. And until we know what's real and what isn't that comes out of her mouth, she really just feels like she's manipulating him this entire film. While they were strangers in the simulation, I just wasn't buying their relationship in the real world either. Again, I think that's because Isabel knows their story, but Greg is still being hung up on his family that may or may have not ever existed. Greg has no real stakes in this relationship whatsoever. And while both Selma and Owen are really good actors, at times their performances in this one felt anywhere from super amateurish to just plain awful.
I'm really worried about you, Greg. I'm really worried about you.
And I don't know if that was the way their characters were meant to be, or if the actors were just struggling with this story. I'm also not quite sure why some of these characters were in here, like the brother who really does nothing at all. And while Greg does seem interested in his daughter, we actually never see him involved or interested in this family in the movie. In fact, it's always the daughter pursuing Greg, and he's just barely holding on to her by a thread. I just wish we were given a bit more of a glimpse and insight into these characters before the story really begins in order to connect us more to them. At the end of it all, this movie was either really good or really terrible, depending on how much of what we see was actually intentional or not. And that's just about as murky as Greg's perception of reality in this one. From the very beginning, I was getting some heavy Matrix vibes from this movie. Even the biggest dilemma for these characters can be essentially boiled down to choosing the real world or the simulation, the red pill or the blue pill. And I like that the film doesn't make the choice as simple or straightforward as that, but it just doesn't feel as well put together as it really should have for me. Was this all one long trip since Greg got fired? Or was Isabel telling the truth about everything? Or were these two just addicts reimagining their terrible existence? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bliss is available now for streaming on Amazon Prime. If you've stuck around this long, please do be sure to give this a like and subscribe for more reviews like this. We've got new content coming out every week. But until next time, have a great day and don't forget to watch a great movie. Bye.
One of these days, you're going to have to choose between these worlds.